Hello, this is Nick Saltarelli. Hello, and I'm in my workshop with my Series 1.5 open 2-seater. It is reasonably stock with a couple of notable differences. There are eared spinners on my 6-inch wide wire wheels, and I've also got a rod-mounted rear view mirror. But the rest of it is, or at least was, fairly stock. Any changes I've made are easily reversible, including this one here. I've gone from the rocker switch dash, which this car has had up until just a day or so ago, and put in the toggle switch dash from a Series 1. And this video is intended to show you how it's done. This is the first stage of the toggle switch retrofit. I have removed the radio console to make more room. I've also taken the door hinges off to allow the door to lay more or less flat. Any switch that had only 2 wires going into it, I pulled those off and labeled them. I've also taken out the gauges, as you see, and labeled the ends of the wires accordingly to facilitate putting the thing together again. I will be using the Series 1.5 switches rather than the Series 1 switches. It's what I'm used to. I'll use the same order. And I'll be reusing this voltage regulator. I'll take that off soon, as well as this resistor over here and this bracket holding this wiring here to give me even more access to the switches. Here we've disconnected the voltage regulator, the resistor, the bracket that was in this location here holding this particular clamp in place, and we've disconnected the harness clamps at the bottom of the center door, as well as the hinges. So here we're hanging free, and what remains is to do diagrams of these remaining 5 switches and then disconnect those in preparation for fitting the Series 1 dash. The center dash is now out. All the different wires at Big Bowl Spaghetti are labeled. And now to get on to the second stage, putting the toggle switch dash in place. It's going to be a bit of a hassle in some places because the wires aren't long enough and the spade terminals aren't the same, but we'll make those adjustments as we go along. And here the job is done. I've retained the original gauges as well as their relative positions to simplify the install by not having to extend any wires. The same can be said for the toggles, of course, with the exception of the headlight and heater fan switches. They're in different locations. The cigar lighter is moved up a few inches. Now going from 2 to 1 headlight side light switch, this brown jumper is now redundant, as is the light for the clock. No loss in this case since it didn't work anyway. The resistor that was in this location is also redundant, so I put a jumper in there since the panel light toggle incorporates its own resistors. I've installed the later voltage regulator here. Maintaining color coding, I've made extensions throughout for the washer, the wipers, the panel lights, and interior lights, as well as the ignition switch. I've relocated the hazard warning light that was in this position to here, and you'll see what I did with the lighter socket in a moment. Finding out how to connect up the switches takes a bit of time. The washer, map, and interior light switches are simple on-off devices, so the wiring is a simple transfer. The panel light, the headlights, the heater fan switch, and especially the wiper switch. It took a little head scratching, but it's basically not that difficult using a continuity tester and wiring diagrams to figure out. This is the panel light switch here. It's a little difficult to see, but the red wire goes to spade terminal number 4 on the switch. The red-white wire goes to spade terminal number 6. The red-black wire to terminal number 8. And terminal number 7 takes the red-blue wire. The heater fan is over here. The green wire goes to spade terminal number 4. The green-blue wire to number 6. The green-yellow to number 8, and 7 is vacant. This is the headlight switch here. The brown white wire goes to terminal number 4. The red black wire to terminal number 1. And the blue wire to terminal number 8. And I'll explain the wiper motor switch in a little more detail. The retrofit of the Series 1 dash to the Series 1.5 E-type is not all that complicated, but what you have to do is to match the switches, and the switches are quite different. It's not very difficult to do, with the exception perhaps of this one. This is the wiper motor switch from the Series 1, which has 6 terminals and 2 hard jumpers and 2 other contact points. And this is the Series 1.5 wiper switch, which has only 3 terminals and 1 hard jumper. The Series 1.5 wiper motor has only 3 wires, as opposed to the Series 1 motor, which has 5. The 3 wires in the Series 1 motor are green, red, and blue. There are tracers as well, but we'll just call them green, red, and blue. Green goes to the fuse panel to supply power to the motor, and the red and the blue wires come to this switch with also a ground wire. So, in order to match this up with this particular configuration, you do a continuity test, and you'll find in the case of the Series 1.5 that there has to be continuity between the blue and the red wire when the switch is off. There has to be continuity between the blue, red, and ground wire with the middle switch, and only the red and the ground wire for the fast position. So you can try different continuity maps on this particular switch, and in the end you're going to find out that you have to jumper terminals 5 and 6 and run the red wire to terminal 3 and the blue wire to terminal 4, and it will work just perfectly. This is the switch as it will appear in the center panel in the folded down position, with number 1 terminal vacant, number 2 going to ground, number 3 going to the red wire, 5 and 6 spade terminals are jumpered, and the blue wire going to terminal number 4. Buried in this great big bowl of spaghetti that we now have is the ignition switch, which is right here. A little hard to see. I've retained the keyed ignition from the Series 1.5 for 3 good reasons. One, it greatly simplifies the retrofit procedure since it only has 3 wires. 2, it retains the accessory feature, and 3, you don't have to have yourself a separate key to operate your door locks. Wiring is fairly simple. The brown wire, as it did before, goes to duplex spade terminal number 1. On the other spade, you have a jumper that goes from the keyed ignition to the push button starter, one of the terminals. Either one is okay. The white wire goes to terminal number 2, as it always did. The red white wire that used to go to terminal number 3 now goes to the other terminal on the push button starter. Simple as that. A fairly important detail in this whole exercise is whether or not this fold down panel actually folds down and gives you access to everything, which it does, because it's pretty important. You end up with a pretty big bowl of spaghetti here, and it does in this case. It folds up easily up and down, and in order for me to do this, I had to lower the radio console and actually the center console about 3/8 of an inch. I'll detail that procedure in a separate posting. And in order to fold the panel down, it's necessary to take off the headlight switch here, handle, as well as to pull the cigar lighter. And this is the end product. As you see, it's pretty attractive. I have installed a push-pull switch here for my rad fans, since the auto switch sometimes doesn't come on when I like it to. And as I said before, I have incorporated this as my hazard warning switch, and the rest is fairly stock. Very attractive, and one of the nicest parts of this conversion, of course, is this little feature. You get to go from a standard ignition to a push button ignition. And that is the end of the project.